Welcome, everyone. We have got another special edition of Coin Rivet. This is episode number 6. We got the man, the myth, Chance Kornuth in the building. He's with us. He's the head, the CEO, the leader, whatever you want to call it, of Chip Leader Coaching. He's in the flesh. He's here. Chance, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Always a pleasure. Always nice to catch up. I know you are a father now, a husband, poker, still dominating, getting big results, and kind of doing it all. First of all, how are you, and how's the family, and how have you been able to balance life with poker and a family?
Balance is something I always have issues with. But lately it's kind of like, okay, I've been playing too much poker, so I'm going to take 3 weeks off. So I'm like about a week or so into taking some time off, and it's been a really nice, relaxing, family version, working out in the morning and spending a lot more time with Ryan and Emily. So it's been fun.
Very cool. And I noticed as you came on, I say you look very, very in shape. You look fit. And you said you gave up alcohol. What was that? Was that like just something you decided because of you just want to be healthier? Thought you were drinking too much, or just what happened there? How do you give that up?
I've talked about this at the table a little bit, but I haven't really talked about it publicly. So I've always drinking too much, and it wasn't really like an issue. Like, I'd black out once, twice, 3 times a year, and it wasn't like an issue. Emily'd be mad at me for a little while. But once we had a kid, I just kind of decided that I didn't want to be that version of myself anymore. And so like actually having Ryan gave me the courage to give up drinking. And it's, a great life improvement for me personally. I've always had trouble with like the amounts of things that I intake. And so, yeah, it's been a really great change in my life, and definitely have some temptations sometimes, but doing great with it.
Very nice. Very nice. And tell me about live poker right now. Where do you feel it is? Because there's COVID, things have kind of opened up. Things seem to be going pretty well in terms of numbers. Obviously, Poker Go's got some great stuff in Vegas. The High Roller Series, sort of 10K plus neighborhoods, seem like they're very healthy. What's your take on the live poker scene currently, landscape? Take some WPTs, and then also sort of the High Roller Circuit series that are going on. What are your thoughts on those at the moment and the health?
I think all live poker is like pretty alive and well. A lot of people had a lot of success during COVID. Like business people are fairly successful, and the fields have been great from a size perspective and a field strength perspective. And yeah, I've been super impressed with what I've seen for live poker in the last year.
It does seem to be doing well. And then on the converse of that, what about online? What are your feelings, thoughts about online from what you see? Numbers wise, guarantees, like, well, what are your thoughts on online and just your
I haven't really touched online much lately, but like in general, when I do play on ACR or GG and stuff like that, the fields also seem pretty good and healthy and with a lot of runners. I think that like the high stakes, maybe at least like the 5K online and then like 10K plus live, are somewhat difficult, just in general. Like the 10K Poker Go stuff, especially with the Poker Go Cup and like the 500K added that they're doing. It's just, it brings out all the elite players. So I think those fields are still pretty darn tough, but definitely alive and well.
And how do you pride yourself on live reads and being a live player? Do you feel you are like, do you think you have a much bigger advantage live than online? Is that something you just really, with the nature of your putting a lot of time and understanding live poker, is that something you do feel like you're further ahead? If you were to compare yourself versus good players, winning players, like, do you think you have a bigger advantage live than online?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think everyone has a bigger advantage live than online. Specifically, like if you can look across the table and see that it's me instead of some random screen name, or like I can see that it's some guy who's 80 years old, or even some other stereotypes that you can place on different player like ages or what they're wearing. It's just like a huge edge in general. Like you're playing online, you look at a spot, you're like, okay, I'm at the top of my range, I have to call. But live, it's like, okay, I'm at the top of my range, but I don't beat any value hands, and this guy's never bluffing, so it's a pretty easy fold. As far as me personally, like I do think that I've been crafting my live reading ability for ever since I started. It's been something I've been super into. In fact, I'm making a introduction to live tells right now. It's going to be like what to look for. It's just going to be like the level 1 like intro to it. But in general, like, yeah, live is definitely one of my absolute favorite aspects of poker.
Very cool. And speaking of this course, you said you're getting into, you do have several products within Chip Leader Coaching. Could you tell me a little bit about what these different products are, and maybe even just go deeper into what Chip Leader Coaching is and has evolved to?
Yeah, so Chip Leader Coaching was initially like a coaching for profit. where we'd like coach players based on how much they play and like what we perceive their ROI to be, and then take a percentage of what they cash for. We found the problem that people kind of weren't, not everyone, but like some people weren't honest with like how much they'd play, and then we had some trouble collecting. So we moved away from that like coaching for profit model and moved to more of like a products and like subscription based stuff. Chip Leader AI is an artificial intelligence platform that Foxen and I spent 3 years and 300K developing. And it basically, like, think of a tree as it grows. If you excel at something, the AI engine knows it, and it'll shoot you up into the branches. But if you struggle with certain concepts, it'll keep feeding you the more rudimentary questions in order to make sure that you have grasped the foundation before you move on. So it is like solver based. However, like a lot of the explanations, and one of the biggest problems I see with like the solver stuff, like DTO and a lot of the other ones that are out there, is like it doesn't teach people how to think. So like our explanations is actually gives why we would do what we do in a spot. And although like a lot of the answers are what the solver would do, like it's not always what we choose. And so it's what we think, like, you know, we've been playing a ton of live poker, a ton of poker in general. And so based on population tendencies, we give our opinion of what a situation, like how it should be done instead of what the solver would say. Because like solvers are just playing like against the solver into equilibrium and not winning any money. And like the GTO line, especially for like the majority of players, probably like 95% or even 99% of players, is not what's optimal at the table you're at. What's optimal is exploiting your opponents and betting when you think they'll fold and betting big for value when you think they'll call. And, you know, it's obviously there's a lot more nuances to that. But the solver is never going to be the winningest player in a live tournament.
It's very interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting way to break it down and look at it. And I know there are some very strong tools these days. So, you know, it's interesting because I think it's nice to understand the nuances within programs or softwares or courses, because I think there are definitely differences, right? You take the top 2, 3, 4 courses, like you're going to get better if you do that almost for sure. If you're coming from nowhere, right? But there are different styles, and I think nuances that are important to understand. So
yeah, sense. And I think solvers have actually made players worse over the last 2 or 3 years. Like a poorly implemented solver strategy is always going to grasp or capture less EV than like just a well thought out plan. You might make mistakes and it might, you know, but like in general, like overall, it's going to make a lot more money. And so CLAI is like a fairly cheap $59 a month subscription based platform. The closer is like an actual product that you just pay for once. It's a $19.99 or $2,000 price point. And it's like Foxen and I in videos and like all the different stages of the tournament and how we recommend you play them based on who you are as a player, how you're perceived as a player. And we're actually still adding to it now. So anyone who is in currently a purchase closer and is in our Slack channel has the ability to message us like, hey, could you add some stuff on blind versus blind or button versus big blinds, like stuff like that. And so we're still building it out and we're making it tailored to the players that are liking the product.
Very cool. And what has been, I know we've spoken before on my podcast, probably maybe a couple of years ago now. Time kind of blends together during this COVID sort of times era. What has been your biggest challenges and also learnings with running this business? Because, you know, it starts out where you love playing poker. You're a very profitable poker player, tournament player, cash player. You love playing, right? You have a family as well. You know, taking on this endeavor. You know, kind of give me the run through. Give me the pluses, the minuses, and the learnings you've had. Give me the whole breakdown of this process.
I mean, my biggest like hardships, I guess you could say, during it was just like while playing poker and while being a husband and a father, like it just took so much longer to complete everything than I expected, especially like doing the Galfond challenge and like, you know, just spending so much time playing poker. It makes it incredibly difficult to build products and be a family man at the same time. And so it's like, you know, I've struggled with finding balance, but you know, one of my favorite things about building all of these products is how much I've learned throughout the process. And it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think that's very, you know, of course we could spend the entire time probably just talking about individually lessons and learnings and things you think maybe would be easy that are difficult or difficult that were not as difficult. And what about your team? How many people, what goes into being chip leader coaching? Like how many people are a part of this? Like, you know, give me a little in-depth look at what this consists of to make this happen.
So we have like someone who helps manage the community, and then my business partner John and I do a lot of like the back end stuff, like working on the email funnels and stuff like that. And then like coaches are myself, Alex Foxen, and Joe McKeon currently. just since we moved away from the coaching for profit. And then we have like a technical person for the website. And then we actually partnered with the AI company Socrates to build the chip leader AI. And they have quite a big team behind them. And so we're still actually, looking to hire people in different areas and working on marketing. And, it's just, like I said, there's so much to do that I didn't really realize when you run a company, that it's like, all right, we need someone for this. We need someone for this. And so it has been a little bit of a struggle, just like getting everything going. It's like, all right, the product's done. Like, let's turn on marketing. Let's, see if people like the platform. And like, it's a struggle to like get all of the systems in place to get it running. I mean, I've learned a lot and really enjoy the solving the business problem aspect of it. Like, it's just fun.
Is there any, without giving away secrets, like, would you say with doing this, you build a course and you're learning as you go, right? Because it's like you're actually probably finding spots or things that you're like, wow, this is interesting, or you're getting. But like when you started out, was it meant to just basically teach what you have done? But the game's always changing. So now it's been, how many years have you been doing this program? Like 3 or 4, or even more now? How long?
Well, like the bracelet hunter course is like when I was playing online with the chip lead and the online bracelet event. And so like in 2017, 2018, whatever that was. Yeah, I think the game's definitely evolved since then. Like people's 3-bet bluff spots, the frequency changes, like the EV of opens from different positions changes. But like, I think the key concepts really do still apply. It's like being cognizant of who the button is, or the button in the big blind, because it's the most frequently you're going to be against those two opponents. So if you have like a really aggressive or a really tight player in those seats, you should adjust your plan accordingly. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons people get it wrong with like the GTO. They're like, I open ace 8 plus here, king 7 suited, and they just have like this set range. And it's like, all right, that's cool and everything, but like the big blind's going to overfold pre-flop, flop, turn, and river. Like, oh, maybe not river because they're too tight, but like, they're going to overfold all these streets. So like you need to be widening your range here, or the button's going to 3-bet you with 20% of hands. Like you can't open the bottom of your range here as profitably. So you should consider like taking it out. And so, I mean, I think those are major adjustments. People, the GTO, people who only try to follow GTO definitely have a lot of issues with that, in my opinion.
For sure. And I see Alex just won a tournament, or I believe yesterday or as early as last night, maybe.
Yeah.
What has been your experience with Alex over the years? Because I think, you guys started working together and a part of this, but he really came up the ranks fast and has emerged as one of the elite players in the world. What is his superpower? What makes Alex so tough and just always seem to be at the contention for a title at every place?
He's literally the most competitive person I've ever met in my entire life.
Wow.
Like the guy just wants to win. Like the guy wants to compete at the highest levels and he wants to win. And like, even when I first started CLC and like we were doing the coaching for profit, we were looking for like our first 5 guys for my group. And I was playing with him in like this 1 or 2K at the Venetian. And like, he took these 2 cold 4-bet spots, or like 2 or 3 in like 3 orbits. And none of them worked, but I was just like, if he had this little aspect of like live poker, he would have known not to take that spot, or like this one was sized a little bit poorly. But he just like was totally fearless. And one of the biggest things I helped him with was just like, you don't have to do what the solver says. Like, it's kind of like a guideline and a recommendation. And it's also good to understand what like people who are bound by the solver are doing. But in general, like Foxen plays more and works harder at poker than anyone I've ever been close to.
Right. Yeah, that the combination seems like it's going to be a successful one most of the time. And what do you think is the most exciting thing in poker at the moment? Like, we see the World Series is moving to a new venue, Bally's. It seems to be healthy, as we talked about at the start of this podcast. Poker seems to be going. What do you think is the most exciting thing in poker right now, or that you're looking forward to in the next year or two? Is there anything that's kind of like you're just chomping at the bit to play?
Personally, like I really want another shot at the main event. Like I've just made so many mistakes in it historically, and I finally have like a good notepad and guide. I'm actually adding that to the closer today after our podcast, and like how I recommend like during day 1, like you're basically playing with all these landmines. Like you don't need to try to take chips from people, which is actually the mistake I've made the most in the past. And then like all of a sudden you don't know that the guy's not going to fold 3rd pair on the river, and then you like bluff off all these chips, and so like you have to dodge the landmines on day 1, and then day 2 and 3, it's like about accumulation and preserving your stack for the bubble so you can punish the bubble, because people overvalue cashing for 1.5 buy-ins. Like, in cashing the main event means a lot to people. And then it's like it's exploiting different stages, you know, and knowing like which players to take advantage of, and like knowing where the value come from. Like at some tables, the value is going to come from 3-bet bluffing. At some tables, the value is probably like, if everyone's too tight, well, 3-betting isn't really plus EV or nearly as plus EV, and the value of opening goes way up. And so, like, based on your opponent's tendencies, and not just their tendencies at the stage you're in or the day you're on, there's going to be so many different ways to exploit those. And yeah, really excited to try that again. And this is like the first time ever where we don't have to wait a full year for the World Series of Poker again. So can't wait.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And tell me about this deep run you had in the main event, because I mean, this is very deep. This isn't like, you know, deep run. This is 2 tables. You could taste it, I think, with 3 tables left or 4. You are one of the chip leaders, or right there at the top of the count. So talk to me a little bit about this deep run. What worked? What would you have done differently? And did you really, you know, were you sure? At what point were you like, I'm going to win this tournament? Was it like with 100 left, 50 left, 3 tables left? I'm sure at some point you were like, wow, like I got to be a favorite with any chips.
I almost never think that, but like in a lot of tournaments, it's hard not to let it creep into your mind. When I beat someone opened and I jammed ace queen suited in a spot where like the big blind was short and the opener was short, and the big blind woke up with aces, and I just like flopped the flush, like flopped him almost like dead. And I was like, wow, I might fucking do this thing. And you know, I ended up losing like a massive flip, queens, ace, king suited. And it was like such a weird spot too, because like physically, I actually knew the guy was at the top of his like pre-flop opening range, but like it was versus like the cutoff or hijack, and I was in queens with the small blind. And I was like, this is still good enough to get in. So it was like kind of a brutal spot where like, I know he's at the top. Maybe I should just like flat and exploit. And even same with like the ace king versus aces bust out. Like I was like, yeah, he's probably like, I think he's at the top physically, but like he might just like 3-bet fold jacks or 10s, or even fold ace king as well. And so it's like, it's kind of tricky in those spots where you have a live read, but you don't really know how much weight you want to put on it.
But like, all right, so let's talk about the queens to ace king, which is more, you know, again, ace king suited or whatever to aces. That's pretty grim, and you know, it's different in some respects. Like, let's just say in this spot with queens, you think he's strong. He's going to have 10s, jacks, or ace king, or even somehow kings or aces, right? What is, looking back on it, because the main event, because how deep you are, because the specialness of this tournament, do you believe, hindsight's easy, but would maybe this be a spot where you just want to call? Like, is that something you actually think, like, if you could do it over, would you do that? Or are you just saying, no, you can't really think like that?
Not with the queens versus ace king suited, because like I would have been out of position since I was in the small blind. I give the opportunity to let the big blind into the pot and realize some equity. Plus the big blind didn't have like a 3-bet shove stack. So like flatting doesn't really like trap them. You know, it was a tough opponent to play out of position against. It was actually the ace king versus aces that I think was like a pretty egregious error, where like I 4-bet shoved for 42 or 43 big blinds. And it was just a situation where like I just got moved from like the really, really tough table with Korai and all the other chip leaders. And I got moved to a table where I had been playing with all the players 5 or 10 times as much as I had at the other table. And so my physical tells on that table were just absolutely incredible. In fact, I had like the Oreo cookie rounders tell on almost every player there. And so to 4-bet shove with ace king, I think is a big mistake, because like in a tournament, it's all about knowing where the value is coming from. So like as anyone else, if they didn't have the tells I had, or like the poker wherewithal to be comfortable at that stage and really like, you know, pick up a lot of pots, well, yeah, it's a totally standard shove. And I'm sure there's a lot of like the GTO regs that are like, you have to shove. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. What are you talking about? But like for me, the value is coming from playing small pots. In fact, that was the very first time the entire tournament that I was like set all in and called. And like I'd said all in a lot, but it was literally the first time. And so like to bust in that way when like I was just accumulating so many chips, didn't feel so good.
And so let's just take through the actual hand. So there's an open at 3-bet. You're in position on the 3-better, and you have ace king suited. So what, you could flat, you're saying, and then
I'm out of position. I opened to 1.2 at 600 under the gun 8-handed, and George Holmes, who'd been incredibly active, which makes this even a harder spot. 3-bets to 3 million on the button, and I think I had 25 million chips at the time, and ended up 4-bet shoving, which, like I said, is completely standard, and it's plus EV, but I'm not sure how much more EV it's capturing than like just calling. So,
and if you had called, what was the flop? Obviously, results oriented, always whatever.
Ace 6-4 rainbow. but he's trappy, so it goes check, check.
Okay.
Turns a queen. I think he's strong pre. I might just check again because he either has like ace queen or fucking jacks or tens or a trap or queens. So I'd probably check again. And now I'd expect him to bet, and then I would just go call. Mm-hmm. So it would have played out considerably differently. There's a chance I would have led the turn for a small size, and he either raises or calls. If he raises turn, I would fold. Same if I bet river and he raises.
Interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. I think one of the biggest things in poker that people overlook in general is, finding all these different spots. Cause like, that's the thing. If you're a player and you're just like chalking up ace king suited to aces and queens to ace king as, that's kind of like, oh, I ran. Cause that's like what I hear a lot. People talk about that, like, oh, their last hand, they ran bad or they got coolered. But like, there's just so many different opportunities. If you give an Alex Foxen, if you give yourself or some other players, the spots is obvious, right? Like small blind, big blinds, all these other things. You have a different situation. Maybe you don't have to get it all in, or maybe you could play differently. I think that's like very important for people listening to understand is, that to think about it like that, right? It's not just like, oh, that's a cooler and that's good game. And also what were all the other different spots? I mean, that's really what poker's about, is finding the small things to lose less chips, to gain more chips, to find spots you're not normally taking or playing. And I really do. I like how you break it down. I like how you think about it. And I think there's no doubt it's very obvious that you know what you're talking about. So yeah, again, a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of different programs, a lot of different information, but I think that's something that your course covers a lot of the stuff. And I think you've seen, there's not just Alex Foxen, there's some other players and some other really well-known players now that have had results.
We even have a Sergio Garcia interview in one of those products.
Who's that?
We even have a Sergio Garcia interview in one of those products.
There you go.
Talking about like the mental stresses of golf and how it applies to poker. And
has he put some work into poker that you know of? Like, is he actually?
We met through poker. I wouldn't say he puts work into poker, but we became friends, and I thought he would be a cool person for people to be able to just hear his mind on, like, because he also is like kind of well known for tilting sometimes and playing golf, and so it was really interesting to be able to pick his brain about that, and like, yeah, I enjoyed it.
That is interesting. You said that course, there's another, the mind one's coming out, or when is that?
Yeah, we have another course called Optimise Your Mind. And even though it's not showing up on the drop-down menu currently, it will be on that drop-down menu very, very soon. I took my two mindfulness poker coaches, Dion Jagru and Matthew Irving, and we, made a really great course on how to play your best at the poker table. And not just like at the poker table, like, for me, it's like about playing your best in life as well. And so like Optimize Your Mind will apply a ton to poker. And actually like a lot of the concepts do, the majority of the concepts do. However, it's not just about that. Like for me personally, like I'm playing my best poker when I'm disciplined in other aspects of life as well. Like I think that it's really important. And like when you are undisciplined in some aspects of your life, at least for me personally, my discipline when I'm playing cards goes down as well. Like I make these opens or 3-bets and I'm like, this is bad. Like as I'm raising, like it's just like almost compulsion, as opposed to if I worked out in the morning and like had like a disciplined meal and day, like I feel like that actually reflects in my poker as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think that's also another thing people don't really think enough about. When you look at professional athletes, let's take the NBA, they're training, they're playing a fair amount of the time, and there's a lot of, you got to have your habits in place. You get a good sleep, you do all these other things, little things that make a big difference. And it doesn't take much to light a tournament on fire and punt or one spot or one bad open, one bad call, and that can.
I barbecued some stacks for sure.
Yeah, it is. So, all right, I want to transition a little bit into crypto. I mean, Coin Rivet, we're going to talk a little bit about price predictions and just in general. Obviously, it's more fun when Bitcoin and things are doing well, whether personally or just in general. It's better for poker. There's no question. When Bitcoin is rolling, numbers are up, people are chirpy and fired up. So let's head over here. Let's take a look at the markets today. I mean, look at this.
I'm opening some crypto prices.
Yeah, it looks like it's up from in the last 24 hours, 4%. Pretty crazy how the markets can swing so fast and move. I like to do this with every guest on the podcast. What is your price prediction for Bitcoin and Ethereum for January 1, 2023?
Man, I'm not as bullish on Ethereum as the average person, maybe. I think that like Sol and just all of the other competitors that are in the space for layer ones now are going to take some of that market share from Ethereum, even if the overall market cap of that section increases drastically. But you know, I still think Ethereum is like a good hold for a lot of people who aren't really interested in buying some of this, you know, smaller coins or coins they don't know about or haven't heard about. So for that one, I'm going to go with 4750 for Ethereum.
Okay.
And for Bitcoin, I actually kind of think we're going to run up to, we're going to hit this diagonal resistance that we've been flirting with before, and probably about 70 to 75K.
Nice. Okay. I like. All right. Lock it in. We'll put that down.
That being said, I do kind of think we have like one more little whip down before we go up again, but I don't know.
And what about CryptoPunks? The other ones, Bored Ape Yacht Club. Like, are you in any NFT stuff? Are you on board? Do you like splashing any stuff at all, or just sort of whatever?
I bought like 10% of Foxen's like CryptoPunk at one point for like when he bought it for like $290 and sold it for like $310 the next day, and like things went down a bunch after that. In general, I am bearish on the majority of NFTs. Like, they're just fucking going to zero. Like, they're absolutely useless. And like a lot of poker players are making a lot of money flipping them. But like, as far as a long-term hold, this little fucking picture of a kitten or a frog is not fucking worth $30,000.
I think it's so similar to crypto in the sense that exactly like the blue chip mint one's probably going to hold value and be something, but then like the majority are just whatever, right? They're just not going to net make a long run hold. So I think it's similar in that respect to it. I'm on board for what you're saying there.
What's your prediction for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think Ethereum will be over 5,000. I think it'll be like 5,500. I think it'll settle in there. And I think Bitcoin, I think we might. Unfortunately, a lot of the people I know that are very sharp and smart within this category, I do think they're kind of in your, like, they don't think it's going to be above 70K. I'm a hype man. I think we might get in the 90s and maybe 100 even. I think it could happen. It really is unpredictable. And I also do agree. I think the crazy thing is people don't realize that Bitcoin's, I think 7 times or 6 times dropped 80 or 85%. I mean, it gets more staggering as it gets bigger. When it went from 20K down to 3K, you know, and it goes up to 67K down to 30K. Like those are, you feel that's very, and now it's mainstream and whatnot, but this did happen, like 1,000 to 200 or 200 down to 50. Like these drops have happened, and hopefully it'll slow down and get more stable. But I do think you're right. I think that, you know, seeing Bitcoin at 20,000 again is not impossible. It just kind of feels like the world's ending if like it goes below that at some degree. I actually, not to go dark here, I don't know if you caught this, follow Joe Rogan at all, and he put a post up about the world and sort of a prediction on its from some MIT computer programs, and then also what Isaac Newton wrote about the world. And did you hear this? Did you see these?
No, keep going. I'm super interested.
It's dark, but it's basically the MIT.
I'm super fucking bearish on the world right now, so I really do want to.
Well, you know, it's so he basically, the computer program that ran was saying that it would be like 2040 predicting the end of civilization. And this was maybe a while ago, like an MIT program simulator. And then also Isaac Newton came up back in the day with a 2060 was what he predicted based on whatever. And like, you know, you start thinking about like, it's just a reminder when you hear about nuclear war, and you start looking at it, you search it, and you're like, oh, this is like, you know, 6,000 or something nuclear warheads that are out there. And like, you start looking around like Putin or who's in charge, who's clicking buttons, whatever's happening, you know, and then you start realizing like, it's kind of like, it's not that crazy. I just, again, a little bit dark, but also just sort of one of those things where you got to live. Like, you know, shout out to Bill Perkins, Die With Zero. You got to do shit. Go out, go hella skiing, do your stuff, have fun, do things that you're like, oh, I don't know if I should go out to dinner tonight or whatever. Like, you know, I'm just saying, live your best life. I hope those things are all wrong and not even close. And I'm sure they are wrong, right? I'm a bull on life, but you know, it's just, it makes you put in perspective. Like the world's happening and changing fast. That's for sure. There's no question about that. So anyway.
Even right now with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and like Russia's going to flip shits if like NATO allows Ukraine to join them. And Putin even said that. And like the US could basically just say, no, that's not allowed, or NATO could say that. But like Biden and like, I mean, he has so many like war-based people in his ear. And like, if you look at some of these stocks, they're up 40% since like March, or like January, February, March 1st, somewhere in there. And like, I'm definitely a little fearful of the US's position and like which direction and how we're handling this. And yeah, it's just such a time of uncertainty that, I mean, I'm very, very bearish on the US economy. And like, I don't know, I'm worried.
It's just like, it turns like living in a simulation. What's going on? You got Elon Musk challenging Putin to a duel. I don't know if you saw that, like, which is like,
oh, I think we're in a sim, by the way.
Of course. I mean, Elon Musk also says it's 1,000,000,000 to 1 that we're not in a simulation. You've heard that or no?
Yeah, yeah.
1,000,000,000 to 1. Like he says he's that it's like out of 1,000,000,000 times, only one time we're not in a simulation. So, whatever. That's, again,
Have you ever been turning left and there's 15, like, and there's 2 left turn lanes and there's 15 cars in one lane and the other lane's empty?
I've seen it.
Tell me those aren't NPCs. Those are clearly non-player characters, because otherwise a couple of them would have changed lanes.
There's stuff like that all the time, every day.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's darker, it's different. I'm with you. I think it's a crazy time. NFTs, crypto, blockchain, the world's moving, happening fast. And yeah, again, live your best life. Not saying the world's going to end or anything. I'm not saying I predict that, but I don't know. Newton, MIT, those are sharp cats. And you at some point you start thinking about stuff. But all right, so crypto NFTs, you kind of gave your take. Tell me about in the world of online poker, because you said you've been playing more live, you're taking a little bit of a break. Do you get excited for some of these series, some of these months, May, or I think like September, always big historically online. We got WSOP bracelets getting done. You won a WSOP bracelet online, so I'm sure you have that eyed. Are you already marking down your WSOP live schedule, online schedule? Talk to me about your planning and for the rest of the year for poker online and live.
I'm not great at planning too much in advance. Like, I have my own little like Telegram channel where I send like, okay, I want to play this, I want to play this. And so like, I'm going to play the Florida WPT the beginning of next month. I might go play at the Lodge. I heard they're having a pretty good series and like cash should be good. Probably won't go to Choctaw, probably like spend, focus on family and company before WSOP. And yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a planner. I haven't even looked at the schedule that they posted. I know there's a lot of stuff that I'll play on the majority of days and not too much else matters. Like, okay, I'm going to grind a ton. I'll figure out the schedule as I go.
And during historically, and maybe it's changed with having a child now, but do you basically go like you sort of hunt out, or I'm gonna play 5K plus events or the games I like only, or are you just like, all right, like I'm gonna go play whatever's running during the WSOP? Basically, what's your sort of take on stuff?
So I mean, I'm gonna take off time beforehand because I want to play a lot when it actually pops up. Like, right. I think of it from a poker player perspective is like, all right, like on average we have X hourly, whether we're playing live or online. And then during the WSOP, I firmly believe that hourly is 1.5 to 3 times what it would normally be. And so I'd much rather, have the illusion of balance, which is actually a term I use a lot in my poker courses, where like I'll spend a month with my family and then a month with the WSOP, and so for me, it really is like, that's a time to make money. And I'm going to do my best to do so.
And give me a bit of predictions for this year. Do you think the Bally's shift, also just poker in general, seems to be at a kind of a high? Do you believe we'll see record numbers? Like, what's your prediction for what this experience will be like at the WSOP and the new venue?
I think the first few days is just going to be an absolute shit show. Like, even the Rio is like in the last one. And like, man, I think it's going to be a nightmare. Like, I'm not even going to drive. I'm going to Uber every day. I'm not going to worry about parking. I'm just going to Uber from my house and drop me off at the front door. But like in general, I do think fields are going to be fantastic and big. And that's just kind of my guess. We'll see.
Right. Yeah, I think and what about for the main event? You think we could see a record year this year?
It wouldn't surprise me.
And do you is there any events maybe that people don't know about that you think are just sneaky value, whether it's a mixed game? Omaha High Low, I found the 10K to be it's like it's a good sized buy-in, but pretty soft.
That's like one of the highest ROI 10Ks of the year. I'm terrible at high-low. I think I've only played it once. But like in general, that tournament's absolutely fantastic. If you are competent mixed game players, those are like really good spots. I'm trying to stay away from like the rake trap stuff, like rake and time trap as well. Like you don't really want to grind. Like if you can afford to play the bigger buy-ins with a similar ROI, like you don't really want to grind like the Colossus and shit like that. Like it's gonna really hurt your hourly. And like, yeah, like the dream of turning $500 into $1 million is pretty incredible. However, if you
Playing for
really want to be
3 days
a
and
professional
making
poker player, like,
1,200,
yeah, you
yeah.
got to think about it like, all right, where's my hourly the best? And like some instances, like, well, I'm even considering like playing cash games and then going to max late reg some of like the 1600s and stuff like that, leaving my chips on the table. If I bust, I'll go back. If not, they'll pick them up for me, you know? And so like, it really is like what you want out of it. And like, I'm actually a huge advocate of regging on time and I almost always do. But during WSOP, there's always so much good stuff to play that you really do have to be considerably more cognizant of your time usage.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And did you ever dream that this would be? It kind of seems like a playground now. You know, I got a place in Vegas a few years ago. Didn't ever really spend a ton of time out there, but now it seems like if you're playing tournaments, it's sort of like a dream spot. Like you got poker almost seems like all the time. These 10Ks or 15Ks, 25Ks going. Then there's like stuff at all these other series, and during the WSOP time, it just seems like overload where everyone's got series and going on. What is it like living in Vegas and being a professional tournament player in 2022?
Right now, it's just absolutely incredible. In fact, like that's one of the reasons I needed to take some time off is just because there's been so much good stuff to play that I like, have been a little bit neglectful of my home life. It's like, all right, I need to spend some time with my like, wife and kid. But it's so easy in Vegas, at least for me, to get like wrapped up in like, oh, well, this 1600 is going to be incredible. Oh, well, then there's this 2K the next day. Oh, and then there's a 3,500 2 mil. Like I'm going to go play that too. And like there is just a ton of good stuff to get excited about. And
yeah,
it makes it difficult for balance.
Yeah, I guess that's a good problem to have though. It's better than the other side of that where there's not much going on. You got to travel and move around to do stuff. You know, you talk about PLO was that fair to say that's your specialty? Is that your favorite game? Or do you like No Limit more now? Tournaments. What about for tournaments? Let's say
for tournaments, I'd strongly prefer No Limit. And the biggest reason is because in PLO, like you truly are bound by your cards. In No Limit, if you think the guy's weak, it doesn't matter what the hell you have. You can do whatever you want. But in PLO, it's like, well, even if the guy's weak, he might just have a hand that continues. Like it might have a lot of equity. So like I strongly prefer the No Limit variety in tournaments. However, the addition of antes to PLO tournaments makes them substantially better. So those are definitely improving.
Could you speak on that a little bit? Because I know this is something that's changed a bit online and then even live now. So how big a change is that in with the PLO having ante? Is it something that also is that they're just experimenting and maybe needs to be more aggressive, or are you happy with the state of PLO tournaments and with the ante where it's at?
It definitely like rewards aggression. It like for players who are like way too wide like they're not getting punished as much because they're getting a better price. But it punishes the nits substantially more because they're going to be overfolding in spots that they should continue. So it's just like any game, like the odds you're getting pre-flop affect your ranges drastically. Like the ante and No Limit tournaments, it's a big blind ante now, even change 6-max. Like when you're playing 6-max tournament and it's like 5 people at the table or even 6, well, technically the ante to big blind ratio is considerably bigger than it would be online. And so it's just like being conscious of all that at all times is definitely imperative to being a winning poker player.
And seeing now with being this experience within business, you could say, right? I mean, putting together a course, a curriculum is definitely it's tedious. There's responsibility, there's customers, relationships, right? There is a lot of work that goes into that. Is that something, does this make you more or less likely to do something like, are you like, man, business is amazing, I can't wait to like start or do another business? Or you're kind of like, all right, I did this, done that, good to go, and I love poker and I just want to spend my free time when I'm not with my family doing poker? Or are you looking for business ventures?
I enjoy the challenges of business. In fact, Emily and I thought of like a really cool product invention idea since we've had our daughter, like something that, I think some of the best products are things that are made out of what you think you need. And you realize a lot of other people want that too.
Right.
And I would love to take some time off and try to develop one of those ideas that we have. And so it's not just about poker for me. Like I'm attracted to challenges and solving problems. And so I think that business has a lot of that attraction for me. However, like obviously like poker is challenging and you constantly get to solve problems. Like every hand is a problem. So like I still love poker. my wife and I are actually considering moving to Nashville, or like a couple of other places we're looking into, just because it would allow me to focus more on company, you know, potentially new companies, and just focus on being a husband and a father, which is an aspect of my life I'm thoroughly enjoying right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't see myself grinding poker 20 years from now. That's for sure.
Yeah, that makes.
I've always wanted to be the poker fish. Like, I've always wanted to be the guy that's like, all right, we're playing a 5K rebuy. I'm just gonna call this kid because I don't like his face.
Right.
You know, like, that just sounds so fun.
I think that's the goal ultimately for most people that play, right? They want to be, it's like, I kind of look at it as pockets, because I think sort of what's happening is people, how old are you, 33 or 2 or?
35.
Okay, so we're the exact same age, and we have a similar aged young child.
Yeah.
You know, I think at some point too, that's sort of what happens. It's like not a lot of people that have kids or are our age really stay in poker. It's kind of like you either really go all in and you're immersed, or you know, you're kind of like step away. I think from like the 35 to 50-year-old range is one of the least demographics of players. I mean, granted, we've been in it for this call it what, 20 years? I don't know, 18, 17 years playing. So like, we're kind of, if you look back to who's still in, there are some, and there's still people that are involved in doing it. But, you know, a lot of people do step away into business, or they become family oriented. And I think that, you know, if assuming poker is healthy, it's fun. Who knows? It might be PLO, rebuy main events, you know, 50K and who knows in 20 years or 15 years what's going to happen. But I do think that, you know, that's sort of like, that's the ultimate plan for me, is like come back in full force, like businessman and ready, guns blazing, Triton millions and whatnot in a decade. So that's interesting. And I do think that poker also has a bit of a problem with the young generation and people coming into poker, right? Because it's like now people are in NFTs, they're into crypto. There's not really US poker that's like a great regulated option. So it's sort of, I saw a stat maybe 2-3 years ago about the main event, and the amount of 21-year-olds, it was crazy. There was like no 21-year-olds. It was like, there's almost none. So I think that is an issue in the industry. And it'll be interesting to see now with some states coming on board, if it gets back and gets a bit higher. I don't know if you notice that. And what about with your programs? Do you notice for chip leaders, is there a shortage with like 21-year-olds and 20-year-olds, or?
Yeah, I would say, like, I don't know, like, especially like I do have like somewhat of a relationship with the people who have bought the closer, because we have like a forum and stuff, and the average age is like no one's in their 20s.
Right.
So I mean, it's definitely an issue. It's a product of like the higher rake in the low stakes games, the bots in the low stakes games. Like, it just makes it so much harder to come up. Like, I mean, Ollie did it, and he did it really well. However, it's just so much more difficult than it used to be. And there are other opportunities in like crypto spaces and stuff like that you mentioned. So people who, like, I think crypto actually satisfies like similar mental categories that poker does. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're losing a lot of people to that space.
Yeah. And what's your overall take on the US in poker? Do you follow it at all? Do you believe, like, right? Because it's crazy, right? Black Friday was over 10 years ago, where they stopped online poker in the US. Like, I would have bet a lot of money that we were fully back and poker was fine, right? Like, it's I would have actually bet that I'm out of poker before, you know, this wouldn't have happened. So it's kind of like, it's just crazy that this is still going. What are your thoughts on that and legalized online poker in the US?
I actually haven't kept my ear to the ground on that at all, so I don't have a clue on what the status is or what's going to happen. I'm
do you
curious.
Think we could have a big, if it did become legalized in the US, do you think it would be another big boom? Like, do you think it would be crazy, or do you think we've kind of hit our big boom in poker?
Yeah, I think like anything like that, like when a new casino opens somewhere, like it has a period where there is a boom. There's a lot of new fish, and like, yeah, and it dries up, just like the other situation where like the fish either need to go to the poker hospital and regain money from actual businesses. But like legalizing online poker in the US would certainly give us a boom. I'm not sure the scale or the length, but we would definitely get something out of it.
And what has been, give me your biggest learning in poker that you've applied to real life? Just what skill set do you think that you are so grateful that you probably wouldn't have got otherwise, that you've got while playing and playing high level competitive poker for real money over the years? What competitive advantage do you think you have in the real world?
I mean, deductive reasoning and thinking about the probability that certain things would happen. And so, like, whether it's just talking with my wife about something or looking at a situation and being like, well, I think this happens 70% of the time and this happens 30% of the time, it allows you to plan for what you believe is the most common instance. And it's really important to think of life as poker and think of things as equity decisions.
I agree. I agree completely with that. I think that honestly, like playing poker, getting to travel, getting to learn, getting to deal with winning, losing, other people's success, your success. I think it really is one of the sort of more underrated things that I just think like people in poker are so much more well equipped to deal with real life what do you call it? Variance situations, right? You really like something weird happens, or like, you get a flat tire, or you have something kind of strange happen. It's kind of like you realize, right? You just put in perspective about life and math, and just things happen, right? It's not about what happens, how you react to what happens. So I agree completely with that.
And I kind of even want to change my answer to like, I did the Tommy Angelo thing like 10 years ago, and like really did get into mindfulness, and like that just changed my life in so many different ways. Like it allows me to be like more present in a conversation, and like, gives you tools if your mind's wandering to come back to the moment, and allows you, and like obviously that's an incredibly useful tool at the table, but like in life or like at dinner with friends, like it's a really good tool as well. And I mean, there's just so many aspects of poker that really do carry over in a positive way to your life.
Yeah, that's well said. I agree completely. Tell me on the closing, one of the closing things I want to talk about here is this thread about people stacking their chips. I got it right here, which looks like it got a lot of engagement. I don't know if that was the first one or maybe it was another one. Was that?
No, that was the first. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. So, talking about people and stacking their chips, what are your thoughts on that? Could you maybe break this down for me? Because I thought this was really interesting and funny, and you'll probably reshape some people that were maybe they might change their approach on what you said. So could you talk to me a little about this, what this means, and what you've noticed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like you'll notice like some common themes in the ways pros stack their chips, and it basically is like our ability to access the different colors, so you can just like bet smoothly without moving stacks around, and also like probably more importantly, the ability to know about how many chips you have, because the effective stacks matter. It's like, do I want to bet 70% of the turn or 75%? Like, am I trying to get geometric betting like to shove the river? And like knowing those pieces of information prior really will stop you from giving information away later. And so, but it's also like kind of fun with the fish, where it's like, this guy just clearly is an amateur. You can just like tell based on the way he stacks his chips, doesn't allow for any of that. Or like, the players who are super nitty that just stack them in one line. Like there are a lot of like fun intricacies. And if you guys haven't checked out the thread, I highly recommend it. I had a lot of time doing it, or a lot of fun doing it. And
and how much of it is a joke and how much of it is serious? And did it come off as like because it is obviously there's real valuable stuff there, but I'm saying, were you kind of like needling and kind of making fun of some people, or in a way like just bringing light to it, or was it just like you actually?
Oh no, it was all completely serious.
That's fun. I saw a lot of answers and replies, and people seem to get a kick out of it. Yeah, I hope they don't take away chips. I hope in like 10 years it's not poker where it's like at the table online and it's electronic and stuff.
I love the love the physical chips.
Gotta have the physical chips. Well, listen, Chance, I appreciate it. I always enjoy talking with you. I think it's very informative. And again, people that are watching, if you get a chance, go check out the website. I'll show one more time here. He has got a very nice site with some nice products, and you said there'll be another one coming, a fourth curriculum coming soon. And again, some of the best. I mean, look, Foxen, Joe McKeon, not much else you have to say. Look at the results. Look at the Hen and Mob. Do you have any goals? Any prediction on your 10 million? When are you going to cross the 10 million mark? Is it this year, next year? You're getting close, man. It's a nice milestone.
Definitely during the WSOP. But one of the things I will say about chip leader coaching is, like, if you want coaching and you play live tournaments, like, don't you want to get coaching from the people who actually win live tournaments? Like me, Joe, and Foxen win more live tournaments than anyone selling poker products in the world. It's just not even close.
I think that's an endorsement. I've offered it before. I'll offer it again. My bandwidth's been low, but I would love to get involved and hoist some trophies and give chip leader a shout out, because I know it. I'll endorse it. I believe it. I see it.
I'll give you everything for free, Jeff. You just pop on there and start making logins.
Listen, I'm not. Maybe I want to pay. I want to feel it. Maybe that's what I need to do to actually get it. Honestly, I have a hard time since college, and even then, I mean, maybe call it high school, like to sit down. I call it what you want. Everyone, there's so much stimulus these days, right? With different socials and stuff. I mean, I got 4 30-inch monitors here. I can barely. It's like I'm out of control. Give me a tip? Give me a tip to close out. What do you do for studying? If someone is, of course, do you just close everything, put your phone on airplane mode, and go into study mode, or are you like a studier where you're listening or do something, you kind of have your email open, you're doing things, or are you just locked in, laser focused when you study? Because I have a hard time with getting through stuff.
The majority of stuff I do, I jump right in. Like some people are really good at like creating habits and like, all right, I'm gonna do an hour a day. I'm like, all right, look, I got this new course. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna check it out.
You can either kind of be organized, or either you don't do it, you're organized, do it, start and stop, or you like binge watch like a TV series and you'll just do a course in a day. Like
one thing I will say is that like people make the mistake of like waiting till they're on like a downswing to look into poker coaching. But in reality, like it's easier to implement those changes into your game when you're like confident and playing well and winning. However, no one like tries to learn when they're winning. Like even myself, it's like, all right, I went on a reasonably bad downswing in like the beginning of the month, so I'm gonna take a few weeks off. Like I'm sure that if I was like still crushing, I would be like playing everything, you know? And so like I think that is like a big mistake that people make, is like not studying alongside their grind. So I do think that it is important to do alongside and not kind of like take turns. But
very, very interesting. Yeah, no, I love it. All right, well, I'll take you up on that, but I am definitely I know that you guys know your stuff, and again, congrats on all the success. Always great to chat, always great to talk. Hope to see you at the new venue at the WSOP, if not before. I think you said you're coming to Florida as well, so maybe maybe see you down here. Are you bringing the family? No, you're not sure.
No, I'm just going to stay in Florida after the wedding, and then the family's going to fly home. So I'll actually be there for longer than I planned because I didn't want to travel across the country twice. But I'll be there for like 9 days, starting on the 5th.
Very nice. Well, I hope to catch up there. Thank you again. This is episode number 6 of Coin Rivet. We got your Bitcoin and Ethereum price predictions. You know, we might have a nice prize at the end. Whoever's closest, you got your answers locked in. And again, we'll see you at the tables. Thank you so much. Make sure you follow Chance on all his socials. We'll put that in the show more below the video. And again, appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.